हॅलो. नाही तुमचा आवाज क्लिअर येत नाहीये. मला तुम्ही गाडीवर चालू करायचं.
हां, माझा येतोय का आवाज?
हां, तुमचा क्लिअर. तुमचा I'll request Kadir sir to share his screen. Before that, I'll request everybody to please switch off their videos so that more and more people can get clear audio.
Switch off their videos so that more and more people can get clear audio.
Kadir sir, please share screen.
Kadir sir, please share screen.
Can I start now?
Yes, please start.
Hi everybody, it is nice to meet you on this new platform. I think we have met several times in the halls, and this is a new experience perhaps, though of course over the years now technology has made things easy to us, and if such kind of technology is brought to our home perhaps, then we can have more opportunities to exchange our ideas, and I think this is going to be a great boon to the structural engineering fraternity. Now today we are going to discuss on the pre-stressed concrete, use of pre-stressed concrete in buildings. There was a time when pre-stressed concrete was solely used in bridges and high-end structures like nuclear containment structures or silos and so on and so forth. So there was one class of designers who were handling pre-stressed concrete, while most of the other designers who were involved in buildings and so on, they were kept away from the pre-stressed concrete technology. Over the years now things have changed, and now we see that everyone has to some way or the other get associated with pre-stressed concrete, its technology, its problems, its intricacies and so on and so forth. The result of that is now we are facing, every designer has to face something pertaining to pre-stressed concrete. There were many issues which everyone faces and tries to come over with an idea that each one should understand the basic concepts of pre-stressed concrete and in some way or the other take rational decision involved in the projects that he is handling. My today's presentation, I will be covering these topics. Firstly, I will give some introduction about pre-stressed concrete. Then I will discuss basic theory of pre-stressed concrete and its comparison with conventional reinforced concrete. The codes of practice used in the design of PT structures will be only listed. The materials used in pre-stressed concrete structures will be discussed. The permissible stresses used in designing the pre-stressed concrete structures are also highlighted based on the relevant codes of practice. Another phenomenon which is of importance to pre-stressed concrete is the loss in pre-stress that will be briefly discussed. Uh, like in any other field that we are now working, we see that we have to get along with the relevant softwares. So some of the softwares which are currently used in PT design will be highlighted. Then some of the advanced application of PT concepts will be just discussed, and some intricacies or some special issues with respect to pre-stressed concrete. The new type of pre-stressed concrete which is being introduced in last few years, that is bonded concrete, unbonded concrete, is now compared with the conventional pre-stressed concrete which is bonded. Then the role and responsibilities of RC designer, because we are now dealing with a situation where in the same structure there are two designers. One, the conventional structural designer who deals with RCC components like the beams, the slabs, the columns and so on, and now we have got a new designer who is doing part of the design of the pre-stressed concrete elements in that. So there is an interaction required between the two designers, and finally the structure has to be in conformity with the relevant codes of practice. And then a simple example is taken where a typical PT design is carried out in the conventional structure, where in normal buildings where the spans are large, we recommend use of pre-stressed concrete in slabs to reduce the depth, to reduce the self-weight and so on. But once that design is carried out by the PT contractor's designer, then the things are handed over to the conventional RCC designer to make any further modification and issue the drawings for construction. At that stage, there are certain important issues which we shall be discussing and so on and so forth. Okay, now we go ahead with the individual items. As far as the pre-stressed concrete is concerned, we say that it is a concrete in which there have been introduced internal stresses of such magnitude and distribution so that the stresses resulting from given external loadings are counteracted to a desired level. So we have conventional structure carrying some loads, and under the influence of these bending elements like beams or slabs and so on, one phase goes in develops tensile stresses, the other one is in compression. Now to increase the load carrying capacity of such members, what we
स्लाइड शो वर जाता का तुमचे सगळे हे शो आहे
गायडे सर, तुम्ही जरा स्लाइड शो वर जाता का?
एक स्लाइड दिसेल
शो आहे, एक स्लाइड दिसेल.
Okay. Now, if we have a structure which develops tension at one phase and compression at the other phase in the final analysis, and if I want to increase its load carrying capacity, then best way is to initially introduce opposite directions forces in it, and thereby we try to increase the load carrying capacity of such members. So the phase which is eventually going to carry tensile stresses, there initially itself we introduce some compressive stresses. The result of that is the tensile stresses have got a better magnitude to finally develop, in the sense they have to nullify the effect of that compressive force and then consider the final tensile stress over there and so on. Now the common application of pre-stressed concrete that has been conventionally in industry, what we come across is we have got the bridge girders, which are the first application that has been introduced in the industry. Then we have the PT slabs with the PT beams, transfer girders. Now these are the items which we come across in our buildings where the spans are very large and so on. Then we have the other types of very small structural items like the sleepers or the electric poles, where a concentric pre-stressing is pre-stressing is applied and its load carrying capacity is increased to that extent. Then we have the nuclear containment structure, where massive structural requirements are to be satisfied, and conventionally the pre-stressed concrete is used in those kinds of applications. Then we have the raft foundation, where if the idea is to reduce the depth of the raft, then you can still use the pre-stressed concrete over there and meet the requirements for the raft. The excavation also can be reduced to the extent of reduction in the depth of the slab, and so on. Many times large span floor grade systems are attempted using the conventional using the pre-stressed concrete system, where we see that the uh, depth of the beam can be reduced to some extent, and beautiful structures can be designed using floor grade system which is pre-stress at suitable locations. Now, as far as the design concept in pre-stress concrete is concerned, we have, I think, I don't know from where these lines are coming. Okay.
I'll request participants don't not to scribble anything on the. I
I'll
think
request participants
Hopefully,
don't
my own
scribble
device
anything.
is perhaps interfering.
I think some of
Now,
them-
first concept that we shall consider is the stress concept. The second one that we shall be briefly seeing is the force concept, and the third one is the load balancing concept. Now, let us consider the first concept that is very popular in pre-stress concrete design, and that is the stress concept. In stress concept, we consider that beam which is carrying some transverse load develops tensile stress at one face, the compression at the other, and if such a beam is subjected to axial compressive force, for example, which is shown over here. So we have this beam of some span carrying some lateral load. There is some rectangular section for it. If concentrically a force is applied, then we say that at any section we will have a uniform compression throughout the concrete item, and then there is bending stress, which is compression at one face and tensile at the other. When we consider the addition of these two, then finally we see that the compressive stress is increased, while tensile stress, which initially had some value if it were under only bending, now that tensile stress is reduced, or sometimes it is in full compression. The whole section is in compression, and concrete being very strong in compression, we get lot of advantages in designing such kinds of structure. So if you have a structure which is carrying, say, transverse load, bending stresses are developed, then we can use concentric pre-stress as is shown earlier, or we can use eccentric pre-stress, which means we are trying to develop initially itself some tensile stress at top and some compressive force at the bottom, so that later on the application of transverse load reverses the picture and we are able to get a favorable stress at that particular point. For example, if we consider a eccentric force applied over here, then due to this eccentrically applied stressing force, we have a uniform compression when that load is transferred to the center. Then there is the moment due to the eccentricity of the load, which develops tension at top and compression at bottom. Due to the applied load, now we have got compression at top and the tension at bottom. All three taken together, now we get some compressive force at the top and some compressive force at the bottom, whatever is the, of course, the application of the distressing force. So we see that we are able to control the tensile stress developed in the given structure. The result of that is the concrete is properly utilized, because concrete is not so favorably placed in designing the tensile stresses. The next concept that we use in designing the pre-stressed concrete structure is the force concept. I think, is the screen properly seen? Because I see some disturbance here. Some overlapping is there. Okay.
some scribbles are there. Somebody has made. I am not able to.
I think.
some
That
scribbles
screen.
are there.
Screen
Somebody
is
had made.
from
I am not able to.
Okay. ठीक है, I think no problem.
Otherwise,
Now,
screen is completely
in
visible.
force concept, we apply, say, in a parabolic fashion, the pre-stressing cable is laid in this way. So, at any section, we have got a tensile force which is there in the cable itself, but eventually it applies a force and on the given section. And for equilibrium purpose, we have the tensile force in the cable, the concrete which develops compressive stress develops a resultant compressive force. Now these two forces form a couple, that is the force in the cable and the resultant compressive force in concrete itself. These two forces form a couple, and the moment of that couple is the moment due to the applied load which we have to resist. So the applied load develops some moment, and these two forces develop internally the couple. The moment of that couple is the resisting moment for the applied load. The third concept that we use is load balancing concept. So if we, for example, place a cable in a parabolic fashion, the cable tries to straighten up. The result of that is it is as if it is trying to apply an upward load on the given beam. There is already a downward load applied on the given beam due to whatever dead load, live load, and so on. While this cable develops a force opposite of that because of its tendency to straighten, which means eventually we have got a situation where there is an applied load in the downward direction. The cable itself develops an upward force of some magnitude which we can calculate depending upon the force that you are applying and the curvature of that particular cable. Together then we get a uniform compression in the given section. Then we have the bending stress due to the net load applied. So there is some downward load, there is some upward load due to the cable, and together there is some stress diagram for the given structure. So we see that instead of using other approach, we are using an equivalent upward load concept where the cable profile and the force in the cable is converted into an upward pseudo upward force which is used for calculating the behavior of the given structure. Okay. Now, having considered this basic concept in the design of structure, let us see what is the basic difference between these two technologies, the reinforced concrete with which we are all commonly associated with, and the pre-stressed concrete which now we are forced to look into it and see as to in what way we are going to see the new technology coming into our field. One is what we consider in reinforced concrete is we can use reasonably low strength of concrete, M20 or M25 and so on. As far as reinforcement is concerned, we see over here that reinforcement that we use is either Fe415 or Fe500 or Fe515. While as far as pre-stressed concrete is concerned, the minimum grade of concrete that we have to use is M35. So 35 MPa is the minimum grade, while conventionally our concrete can have reasonably low grade over here. Then we see over here that we are using normally high tension, high HYSD, that is Tor bars of either 415 or 500 property, while in distress concrete we use the steel high tension wires of ultimate stress of about 1800 MPa. So it is almost 3.5 times stronger as far as the ultimate strength is concerned for its property. Then as far as concrete cracking is concerned, in reinforced concrete we freely allow cracking of concrete, and below the neutral axis in beams we presume that concrete is no longer available for resisting any tensile forces. It is assumed to be fully cracked, and that cracking is acceptable. While in pre-stressed concrete many times there are severe restrictions put on the either cracking is completely eliminated or prevented, or the crack width is controlled, so that the cracking is an important phenomenon to be controlled in pre-stressed concrete. In many external applications like bridges and so on, they generally go for uncracked concrete in the final loading combination. While structure in normal reinforced concrete, structural element can be in compression or in tension or flexure, while if at all you want to go for a pre-stressed concrete structural element, then we say that it has to be either in tension or compression. An element which is already in compression, we cannot use pre-stressing for that, because pre-stressing is mainly there to nullify or reduce the effect of tensile forces. As far as structure, RCC structure is concerned, we can have structure of very small length. We have seen in many buildings, small beams are there of 2 meter, 3 meter span, or slabs are also there of very short length. But in pre-stressed concrete, that is not possible. We cannot have a pre-stressed concrete beam which is only 2 meter in span or 3 meter in span, because of some losses which we shall be considering subsequently, because pre-stressed concrete involves some inherent losses, and if the structural length is very small, then those losses completely nullify the effect of pre-stressing, and then nothing is available from the pre-stressing tendons and so on. While as far as reinforced concrete is concerned, we can see that generally reasonably unskilled laborers can be used for casting the pre-stressed normal reinforced concrete structures. Further, very few specialized equipments are required in handling reinforced concrete, you can say at site. While in case of pre-stressed concrete, we require reasonably trained technical personnel, skilled persons are required, because they have to handle proper the jacks which are used for stressing the cables. They have to properly lay the cables with millimeter accuracy, and so on and so forth. The specialized equipments, hardware is required in pre-stressed concrete, like the wedges, the jacks, the pumps for bonded concrete, or the pumps for the jacks for stressing the cables, and so on and so forth. The working cycle for reinforced concrete, whatever is the period that we consider, for pre-stressed concrete, the working cycle is slightly increased, because we have got additional activity of laying the cables, thereafter stressing the cables, and then grouting. So all these activities involve some time. The result of that is the number of days per cycle gets increased in case of pre-stressed concrete. As far as the codes of practice are concerned, in pre-stressed concrete, we have the Indian code IS 1343, it is revised in 2012, and international codes are also available for designing, like BS 8110. Then we have the Euro code 1992, and the ACI code is also available for designing the pre-stressed concrete structures and so on. Then we have these materials required for pre-stressed concrete. Of course, first is the concrete that we have to deal with, reasonably high strength. Then we have the high strength wires or the strands going into pre-stressed concrete. Then we have non-pre-stressed steel, which is also required, because 100% balancing is not possible with pre-stressed concrete pre-stressed strands. So some help has to be taken from non-PT steel. Then we have the grout for bonded strand, which we shall discuss briefly later on. And we have the hardware like the wedges, the sheathing, the jacks, the grouting pumps, and so on and so forth. So we need all these materials to finally use a pre-stressed concrete structural element. Now, as far as concrete is concerned, we need two of its properties. One is its stress strain curve, giving you the modulus of elasticity and so on. And of course, we need the ultimate strength or the permissible strength for concrete. So with these two parameters, we are able to go ahead and carry out the design of the structure. Then we have the high strength wires or the high strength strands. Now these strands that you see are used in bonded concrete, bonded pre-stressed concrete, while these one with a plastic pipe and filled with grease or some lubricant, that is used in unbonded type of pre-stressed concrete, which is now more popular over the years. As far as high tension steels are concerned, it has got a peculiar stress strain curve with its elongation very small compared to torch steel. In torch steel, we get ultimate percentage elongation in the range of 14.5 or more, while in case of pre-stressed concrete, that is limited to only 5%, while at the stressing level it is as small as 1%. So it is a very small elongation that we have to deal with. Many times the strands are their properties are available in terms of table, where different diameter strands and their load carrying capacity at a specified elongation are specified, and this data is used many times by the contractor or the PT designer for finally designing the structure. Now we have for non-PT steel the conventional stress strain diagram, which we have got for Tor steel this kind of diagram Fe415 or Fe500, while for mild steel there is a large amount of yielding, and then there is strain hardening, and finally elongation of the order of 23 to 24% is observed, while for high strength bar we have got an elongation of about 14%, and they don't have a distinct yield point as mild steel. So we consider that Fe415 or 500 as the stress at 0.2% elongation in this particular case. Okay, now the next item that is required in pre-stress concrete is a grout, which is a non-shrink grout, or other types of grouts are also available, which are used to fill the sheathing eventually after carrying out the stressing. Then we have to protect these strands from corrosion. For that purpose the entire sheathing is filled with concrete, that grout. Either we can have flat sheathing, which is many times used in slabs, or we have got this round sheathing which is used in beams and so on, where a large number of strands are clubbed together to give a required pre-stressing force. Now these are some of the hardwares which are available, like the wedges. We have got the wedges, where the wedges are used finally to lock the forces in the given cables. Now these are the wedges and the sheathing for unbounded PTU strands. These are the sheathings. We have got flat sheathings over here, while here we see the end wedge, which is used to hold the pre-stressed strand, and then the wedges are driven in it to finally lock the PT strands and so on. Now as far as the permissible stresses in concrete are concerned, we have got two numbers, or two, you can say, data given by the relevant code IS 1343. The permissible stress in compression. Now there are two stages of the pre-stressing operation. One, when you apply the pre-stressing force itself, that is called as the stresses at transfer, and secondly when you have got full load applied, so that is called as stresses at working stage. So the codes give permissible stresses in both the cases. The IS 1343 gives us for different zones. One zone where the or type of situation where the compressive force remains the same at transfer as well as at the end, while in some cases the later on the forces gets increased and the compressive force also increases. In that case the code gives different value of permissible stress for compression. In that was I think in pre-tension, while here it is in post-tension. Most of the application with which we come across are post-tension, which means we lay the concrete, the cables are laid inside it, and with sheathing and so on, and later on the stressing is carried out. So the stressing is carried out separately after the concrete is cast, and it gains strength and so on and so forth. Okay. Now permissible compressive stress is to be worked out in at two different places. One, when at reasonably away from the end, we consider the force, the bending, the eccentricity of the force, the bending moments and so on, and the resultant stress are worked out. While near the end, where a very large compressive force is applied at the end, at that place very large amount of stresses are developed, stress concentration also occurs. So their code permits reasonably high strength, high stress as a permissible stress, which is as high as 0.8 times the permissible stress obtained in that earlier clause over there. Okay, now permissible stress in tension there are four types of structures. One is when low tensile stress is considered at all at any stage. So we have to restrict the pre-stressing force in such a way that no phase develops tensile stress. In type 2 structure, we allow some tensile stress but not exceeding the tensile stress which is permitted in concrete. So if concrete has got some tensile strength, then we limit the tensile stress to that value, and so. In type 3 structure, where we allow some amount of cracking of concrete, so we permit the stress to exceed the cracking strength of concrete, and in that case some additional reinforcement is placed over there, but still the section is not permitted to have very large amount of cracking, and that is our type 3 structure. While in type 4 structure, large amount of crackings is permitted. Many times a very large portion of the moment is carried by normal reinforcement itself, while PT also supplements that strength, and so on. So in type 4 structure, reasonably large amount of tensile stresses are permitted, and the structure is designed accordingly. Now these are some of the figures given in IS 1343, permissible stresses in concrete in tension for post-tension or pre-tension and so on, for different grades of concrete. They give you the permissible stresses in tension. So we have to see whether that stress is exceeded by the designer in any of its applications. And further, if the depth of the member is large, then code further restricts the value of tensile stress in the concrete by limiting the final figure with a multiplying factor which is less than 1. So sometimes you need to restrict the tensile stress further if the beam is very deep, and so. Another important problem associated with pre-stress concrete is the loss in pre-stress. In case of normal reinforcement, we are not much worried as to how much is that loss, though some loss does occur due to some of the phenomenon which we shall discuss. One is the elastic shortening of concrete. So when you are carrying out the stressing of the pre-stress concrete slab, for example, let us say, then first cable is stressed and the slab shortens by a small amount, maybe half a millimeter, 1 millimeter, and so. When you stress the second cable, now this cable further gets shortened. The result of that is when all the cables are stressed, in first cable the force is reduced because its length itself is reduced between the wedges. So this elastic shortening is one of the cause of loss of pre-stress, because all cables are not stressed simultaneously, and the result of that is as you go on stressing more and more cables, the force in the previous cables which are stressed earlier, that gets reduced. The creep of concrete has got similar effect, that due to the creep of concrete which occurs over a period of time, slowly the length of the element itself reduces, and due to that the pre-stressing force also reduces. Shrinkage of concrete also has got the same effect, while as far as creep is concerned, due to creep the continuous load or continuous presence of the load causes additional deformation in the concrete, which changes the pre-stressing force. It may increase in some cases, but in most of the cases its effect is felt over a period of time, and so on. Shrinkage of concrete has the same effect like the elastic shortening. It occurs in the initial stages. Most of the times the shrinkage occurs before the stressing is carried out, so this need not be taken care of in designs. Relaxation of steel is also one of the phenomenon where when the stress level is so high in pre-stress strand, in that case over a period of time the molecular adjustment occurs, and the strand which you have initially stressed, let us say to 1400 MPa, after a period of time it reduces to 1350 or 1300. There is no other phenomenon. It is only the molecular adjustment which occurs internally in the material steel, and that reduces the stress in the steel itself. Then slip of anchorage. When you are driving a wedge at the end, when you are stressing with a jack the cable, and then you drive the wedge and drive it so that the jack can be released. At that instant the cable slips for a while, that is few millimeters it slips. To that extent the stress gets reduced. Now here we appreciate that if the initial slip itself is 2 to 4 millimeter, and if your pre-stress element itself is only 2 meter long, then its elongation itself may be 4 to 10 mm, and out of that 2 to 4 mm will go in the slip itself. Then there will be hardly anything left for resisting the bending effect and so on. And then we say that loss or gain due to the bending of the member. Later on when the loads are applied, then the phase at which we have got the pre-stressing strand, at that level the curvature occurs, so that can increase the pre-stressing force, and if the margin is not there in the strand itself, it can get overstress also over there. One of the important loss to be considered by the design of PT members is the loss due to friction, because the cables have to pass through the sheathing. The result of that is, as you stress the strands, it rubs against the walls of the sheathing, so there is a lot of friction developed at that point, and we have to account for the loss due to friction, knowing the coefficient of friction between the two surfaces and so on. These days HDPE, that is those plastic sheathings are used. In that case there the coefficient of friction is extremely low, so we don't have to worry about the loss of friction in this type of sheathing. Okay, and then we see that eventually the total loss that we estimate in pre-tensioning and post-tensioning is between 20 to 25% due to all these phenomenon taken together. Now the software that we use in designing PT members, popular softwares are the ADAPT, which is one of the earliest software used in buildings, while SAFE is now, over the years, last few years they have brought out the PT concept in the SAFE itself. Those who can get acquainted with the design of PT slabs or beams using SAFE, they are welcome to do that, because it is almost a well established software in RC design as well as PT. Similarly, RAM developed by Bentley is also one of the software used in designing of PT members, and RAPT, which is an Australian software for designing the PT members and so on. So all these softwares are available and they are highly user friendly. So anyone who can handle ETABS or SAFE or STAD can easily see these softwares and start using it for PT and PT design and so on. Now some of the special applications that we where we recommend the PT technology is the large span floor grid system, where there is restriction in the depth. One of the structure which we have designed in New Bombay, Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation, where it is a 40-meter diameter circular floor grid system, where we have used it with only peripheral supports, and the depth of the girder grids was restricted to only 1600 millimeter. With that system we were able to develop design this PT floor grid system. Then we have the PT raft, which we have designed in Oman a few years back, where there was a requirement that they wanted to minimize the excavation. So we were able to reduce the thickness of the raft by almost 400 mm. To that extent the excavation was reduced also. Then we have the voided slab. Many times to reduce the weight of the slab, the voids are introduced, large voids are created inside the slabs or beams, so that we are able to minimize or reduce its own weight and thereby gain some economy in designing of PT members also. There is one problem associated with addition alterations of PT structures. For example, you have cast a slab, done the stressing and so on, and later on someone suggests that I want to pass some services through it and I want to cut the slab, and the opening is at the place where you have got the tendon itself, or the pre-stressing strand is located there itself. Few years back, when the people were not well versed with this technology, there was a strong resistance to drilling the slab which has already been stressed. But now people have realized that nothing happens to the slab whether you cut the strand or not. If it is a bonded PT that you are using, then you don't have to worry about it. You can straight away cut the strand because it is already bonded to concrete. So the forces are already transferred to concrete. So nothing happens to it. But if it is unbonded, then you have a serious problem, because with unbonded, you cannot cut the strand. Once you cut it, the force gets released completely. So you have to specially devise a methodology by which you can slowly release those strands and then re-stress them, and so on and so forth. So it is a hell of a operation, but still with proper ingenuity you can manage that. And in case of transfer girder, many times in reinforced concrete, in high-rise buildings, you see that transfer girders are almost everywhere required, because we have got some, you can say, some locations of columns in the lower floors for parking and other activities, while in upper floors the columns are located at different place. The result of that is we need either the transfer girders or the transfer plates if there are several columns with their change of locations. In such cases, we have got a medium, for example a girder, which is to be subjected to large loads coming from top, and to reduce the depth of that girder you can use pre-stress for that. But the problem with this transfer girder is the transverse load is not applied at one go on that girder. As you go on constructing, after construction progresses, you have got some load, and so on and so forth. We had a problem where there were 30 floors floating on that column. So after every 10 floors we had to carry out stage wise pre-stressing, because at initial stage itself it was impossible to apply full pre-stressing force, because then there was no load to be resisted over there, and it would have resulted into a complete cracking of concrete at the top and so on. So we had to carry out stage wise pre-stressing. So after every 10 floor you can carry out the stressing required for that amount of load, and so on and so forth. Now we have this technology, as I have indicated to you, that we have bonded concrete over the years, and recently, I think last 5 to 10 years in our country, people have introduced, and some contractors have specialized into that, in providing unbonded system. Unbonded system has got some advantages over the bonded system, and one of the one of the difference between the two is, in bonded system you require some sheathing, which later on is filled with mortar and so on, while in case of unbonded system, that strand is provided with a pipe of very slightly larger diameter than the strand itself, and is filled with either grease or some lubricant to protect it from corrosion. The result of that is, once you lay the strand, there is nothing to be done, no grouting is required, or no other activities involved in that. Due to the presence of sheathing, the lever arm or the eccentricity of the pre-stressing force is slightly less in the bonded system, while because the strands or the overall size of the unbonded system is very small compared to the bonded one, the lever arm that it gets is more. The result of that is that design is slightly more efficient than the bonded system. While in case of bonded system there is loss of friction, while in unbonded system there is no friction at all, because the strand is covered by lubricant itself, so there is no loss in pre-stress over there. While in bonded system we have to grout the sheathing over there, while in unbonded system that's not required. While cutting of slab is not so easy in unbonded one, while it is not so difficult in bonded system, and so on and so forth, which we have discussed. Now we see that, having considered this in the project that we handle these days, where you have got a PT slab, then we have got two designers working on the same project. So we have an RCC designer who otherwise handles RC design of columns, footings, beams, and so on and so forth, while there is a PT designer who deals with pre-stressing design of some of those elements like the slabs or the sometimes the beams are also pre-stressed and so on. So we see that we have got a designer who is a basic RC designer, and there is another designer, PT designer, who designs his structure, but with one important condition, that he designs his structure, that PT element, only for gravity load. Now there lies the catch, because we as a RC designer have to deal with not only gravity loads but lateral loads like the earthquake, the wind, and so on and so forth. While PT designer, he only considers that floor slab and designs it only for the gravity load coming on that. The result of that is he gives a design which is not final. You have to finally see that that structural element is able to withstand the effect of the lateral loads over there, and so on and so forth. So we now see that the responsibility of the RC designer and the PT designer is to be is started by the RC designer itself. So he has to supply the data to the PT designer, the geometry, then the loads, boundary conditions, and so on and so forth. Once that data is given, the PT designer would carry out the design and hand over his design to the main RC designer, and then RC designer has to finally see whether whatever design is produced by a PT designer is able to take the lateral load, or whether any additional reinforcement is required, and so on and so forth. As far as PT designer is concerned, he designs the member by taking some moment or by taking some resistance from PT strand and some resistance from the non-PT reinforcement. Now he has to strike a balance as to how much moment he should resist by the PT strand and how much he should leave it to the non-PT strand. There are options available. So many times the PT designer can design his PT technology or his PT strands only to resist 50% or even 40%, or to that extent very small amount of moment, but then large amount of steel is required as a non-PT steel, then the main advantage of providing PT is lost. So many times we have to see whether the PT designer has taken a reasonable share of the moment in the PT strands, and so on and so forth. Now as far as the non-gravity loads are concerned, like the wind load or the earthquake load, the entire responsibility lies with RC designer. So RC designer has to check the design of the PT designer in such a way that whatever is the additional moment that is developed by the lateral load, he has to finally provide additional reinforcement for that, and then issue a good for construction drawing over there, and so on. And finally, of course, he has to issue a stability certificate, a very intricate or a delicate issue, because he has not designed the PT slab, but still finally he puts his license at stake and issues a stability certificate, and so on. So it is always necessary to critically see the design produced by the PT designer, and finally see that the PT designer has taken adequate precaution and carried out his design with satisfying all the provisions of the relevant codes of practice, and so on and so forth. Now let us consider now a simple example. I think we are almost coming to the last part of the presentation, and that is I have taken a simple example which is of course a real example, where this is a building for which the PT slab was proposed. For this particular building, a typical floor is of this type. So we have got in this I think, sorry, I had some small internet problem, but I think now can we see the screen properly? No issue on that?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. So here this is a PT slab,
Yeah, we can see.
and for this PT slab the design is required to be carried out by PT designer. So the data is supplied to the PT designer, the complete structural drawing is handed over to him, so he should know where the columns are, what is the span, the dimensions, the beams, the peripheral beams, and so on and so forth. With all that in mind, now a PT designer makes a model in his software like an ADAP. So he considers the ADAP model using his software. He puts the entire data over there, puts the loads, puts the boundary conditions and so on, and then gives you the details that these are the strands required, these are the bending moment capacities, these are the bending moment diagram, the shear force diagram, and so on and so forth. While you as a RC designer has got your own model, which may be either SAFE or any other that you software that you have. So you have some software available with you by which you can also take the same loads and generate your own results. So you have got results from a PT designer. Now these moments that he has supplied are due to the gravity load for which finally he has carried out the design. His design is based on two materials. One, some moment is taken by PT strand and remaining moment is taken by the reinforcement over there. So he has carried out the design and he has given you that entire data. So now it is your responsibility to see as to how much moment he has calculated at those locations and how much moment you are getting based on the lateral loads that you have applied. So I have considered in this particular case one of the design strip. So this is the design strip. Now as far as SAFE model is concerned, we see that SAFE model is provided with those design strips. We are free to choose design strip of any width, but in the present case we have to take the width same as what the PT designer has done. So he might take design strip of width of any amount that is suited to his working, while we have to for checking purpose take the strip of the same width and generate the results over here. So we have these moments generated by the PT designer. So we can take his data that under dead plus live we have to see how much moment he has basically got, and out of that of course he has taken some moment through PT and some moment through RC. While now using your own software, so in the present case we have used SAFE, and in SAFE at relevant locations we have got these moments. So for example, at any place, now in this place I have got 137.95 as the moment under gravity load by the PT designer using his software. At the same place I have got from SAFE under gravity plus lateral load a moment of 237.95. So he has already designed his system, PT as well as non-PT, to resist this much moment, or his reinforcement and strand that he has used might have slightly larger capacity also. So I can take that data from him as to his design is based on this moment, but how much he has actually provided for. So he can supply that data, and using that data and my own data for lateral load, I can now go and carry out my own additional design, that is to provide for lateral load. So at such places we can say that at every place that we are now visualizing, we should know what is the moment for which he has designed the PT system, what is the additional moment that we have got from the lateral loads, get the balance, and then see whether the entire moment is taken care of by the two systems, that is PT strand and the non-PT steel, and so on and so forth. Of course there are other effects to be considered, like the stirrups also are to be provided, because he gets stirrups due to only gravity load. Due to lateral load we might require some additional stirrups and so on and so forth. So we have to consider all that strip by strip, and then carry out the complete design over here. I think with this we can come to the almost end of the presentation, and I am really thankful to all of you for patiently hearing the entire lecture, and finally see that if the system that you are now considering, that is your PT system as well as reinforcement, then you have to take the full responsibility, and for that purpose you need to understand whether he has applied the load that you have given, he has taken the geometry that you have given, he has applied the proper support conditions, and so on and so forth. There are many times in RC structure some slabs we say these are PT slabs, but there might be some pockets which are non-PT. There are many situations like that, but still he has to consider those non-PT items and prepare a model which is complete in all respect, and then consider the designer. So when you check his design, your responsibility is is going to make you safe or unsafe, because you have to see very critically whether he has taken all the data, whether it matters to him or not. He has to take all the data and then properly carry out the design and so on. I think I must thank Epicon's consultant for giving me this opportunity to share my views on pre-stressed concrete over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We will take some questions. We will take questions strictly from chat.
Thank you, sir.
And request
We will
Gadgil
take
sir
some questions. We will
open
take
the group
questions
chat.
strictly from chat.
And
I
there are
request Gadgil
questions
sir
right,
to
starting from
open the group
441.
chat. And there are questions right
4:41
starting
PM.
from 4:41.
Okay.
You see.
Now the chat is there.
4:41 p.m.
Chat is there in your
You see,
bottom
chat
screen.
is there in your
There is a
in your
symbol for chat.
Okay.
bottom screen.
Please open that.
There is a symbol for chat. Please open that.
Shall I close my screen?
You can close the screen.
Stop sharing. Huh?
You can
Stop
close
sharing.
the screen.
Open the chat.
Stop
chat.
sharing the
Okay.
screen. And open the chat.
Okay. I think there are
There are so many other messages.
so many
You can
messages
ignore
are
that.
there.
But
Okay.
you can start with the message with code
There are
at
so many other
4:41
messages you
PM.
can ignore.
There are some
4:41.
But
questions.
you can
Okay.
start with the message with code at
If you
4:41
can't find it,
p.m.
I'll read it.
There are some
Ah,
questions in between.
this 441 is
If
below
you can't
or
find it,
above?
I'll read it.
Below. And, you are seeing the timings, no?
Yeah.
Below. You are seeing the timings, no?
Got it?
I think it is above. As you go up, the time reduces. It is at
Correct.
441,
I
is
don't
it?
know where you are. So, as per time,
Correct. I don't know
441,
where you are.
that is the first question.
As per time.
448, I think.
That is the first question.
I have a doubt, sir. In post-tensioning beams, it is practiced to extend the width of the beam will be more than 300 on either side of the column to accommodate the strand. As strands are not permitted within the column width, is this arrangement is safe for earthquake? Okay. I think this one misconception I want to remove from the minds of people, that these strands are not permitted in column. Strands are permitted in column, particularly when you consider unbonded strand. They are very small in diameter. If they can be passed through the reinforcement of column, there is no harm in passing the strand through the column. First thing. But many times if you have got sheathing which is wide enough, accommodating 4 strands or 5 strands and so on, then it is difficult to pass the strand through the column. In that case, you can take the strands on both sides of the column. If it is a slab, then there is no issue, because the strands go in the slab itself. If you have got a beam, then you need to make the beam wide enough and in that case you have to take the strands in the width of the in the portion of the beam which is outside the column. There is no issue. It is a monolithic joint. If the concrete is monolithic, there is no harm at all. You are providing reinforcement. See, your strand is outside the column, no issue with that, because you are pre-stressing the beam itself. So you have got a monolithic joint, and then there is no problem at all. It is like any other joint. If the beam is of lesser width or bigger width, so long as the beam is not unduly wide, because if the beam is, for example, if column is 1 meter and if the beam is 4 meter wide, then it can create serious problem, because if the beam might rest on another beam and then you will have different issue. But if the beam is only few 100 millimeter on both sides, say 200, 300 mm, so it accommodates one cable on either side, then it makes no difference, and your ductility details are unchanged, that you have to provide in the usual way, and it doesn't affect at all the performance of the joint.
Next question.
Next question.
Flat slab.
Flat slab with drop.
Flat slab with drops.
This is nothing to do with actually PT slab. Flat slab with drop or without drop is safe during earthquake.
Flat slab with drop or without drop is safe during earthquake. There is no problem. See, basically flat slab is going to present a challenging structure anyway during earthquake, and the code has given severe restrictions on providing flat slab in any high-rise building, but still they have not prevented the use of flat slab with or without drop. You can use it, no problem with that. Code has given severe restrictions on the lateral displacements of structures with flat slab. So once that is satisfied, I think there is no issue on that. How to simulate the effect of shrinkage, creep and temperature in software? As far as temperature is concerned, I mean, in all the softwares you have got the temperature phenomenon. That is, you can always take that as an input, plus minus 10 degrees, 20 degrees. That is for your general analysis. While shrinkage and creep, there are those coefficients which are to be used in calculating the total shrinkage loss. That cannot be directly taken in some in the softwares. It seems that in safe software they have of late come up with some coefficients for shrinkage, but still I have not taken that as a very reliable system. So I have not used the provisions in software for creep or shrinkage. Request to please provide e-certificate.
That you can skip.
Okay. Does performance-based design in
That we can
PT
skip.
construction adds value to the
That's
behavior
performance-based design.
of overall structure? I think so far as the performance-based design is concerned, I think it is only there in the code, and perhaps in high-rise buildings and so on, people are now feeling the need to carry out performance-based design. That is a kind of pushover analysis. But I have not seen performance-based design with PT construction. Please suggest PT materials
That
other
somebody has
than
answered
Tata.
already.
Oh,
Shamai.
okay.
That
Please
somebody has
clarify
answered
whether
already.
M35
Shamai.
grade is a must or M25.
Please
M35
clarify whether M35 grade is a must or M25.
M35 is the
No, as far as PT is concerned, M35 is the minimum grade specified by codes, and some codes even go for M40 also. Why should it to PT designer is not possible to design for gravity load on our own? See, as far as PT designer is concerned, he is using the strands and so on to satisfy some of your own requirement. You need to reduce the depth of the beam. That is why you have gone to him to see that the depth of the beam gets reduced due to the use of the PT strands. If you don't require that, then you don't have any use of the PT designer. Kindly share PPT on this mail. Okay. What is the minimum and maximum limit of bending moment to be shared by PT? The general guideline is it should be minimum 65%, but preferably it should be 75 to 85%, not more than that, more than 85%, because it is dead plus live that we are considering. So initially live load is not there, so it is better to go for only 75% or 80% and so on. So that is the upper limit. The lower limit, of course, he can't put 20% or 30%, because then the very purpose of reduction in depth is lost. Sir, as you have mentioned, the PT designer only designs for gravity load. How will RCC designer ensure that PT structure for lateral forces? I think that I have explained, that you
Already
work out.
explained.
That it is already explained. How many days of
Already explained.
casting of concrete PT will be undertaken? See, normally it requires 80% of the strength. So you just see, normally that is available in 10 to 12 days for sure. After that you can do the pre-stressing, but you have to see how the PT designer has worked out his entire design concept, because he might have assumed full 28 days strength, and then at a lesser number of days, if that strength is not available, then of course you have a difficult situation. I think how to design for temperature, I think that is part of your ETAB only, so you can design it for it.
Some of the questions here you can skip also.
Okay.
Whatever important is
Some of the questions here you can skip also.
I think as far as the recording of this is concerned, I will be putting it on YouTube. So from tomorrow onwards, you will get it on YouTube.
yeah.
Yeah.
What if the tendon is cut? I think tendon, if it is a bonded system, then it is already it has already transferred load to concrete. So if tendon is cut, it doesn't matter. The load will take proper path around the opening, and there will be full equilibrium established right from beginning. So modification, addition, alteration is possible for bonded system. There is no issue at all. Both bonded and unbonded system, which is best? There is nothing like best system. Only thing is one has got some advantages, other has got different types of advantages. So you can't get both the advantages in one system. So you have to see what kind of advantages you want to encash, and accordingly you can select a bonded system or unbonded system. I think a reference book on PT. PT designer had used some part of concrete stress block. If RC designer provides the steel for lateral force in tension, then how to take care of stress block? I think for stress block there is reinforcement provided to take care of only local high stresses. It has nothing to do with lateral load resisting system. Your lateral load resisting system is separately provided for. Can we provide it to steel structures? Steel structure, I mean, people have tried steel structure pre-stressing, but very rarely, because steel is a material which is good in both tension and compression. So you can go to the same stress level or reasonably comparable stress level in tension as well as compression. So for steel, it is not found so suitable. Very rarely, and I have not come across any structure where it is steel structure being pre-stressed. How to choose parabolic profile for tendon? I think that once you know the bending moment diagram, the parabolic profile can be selected. It is any profile that you select, normal, parabolic, that is quadratic curve you can use to select the profile, and for that profile you get the eccentricity, and accordingly you can work out the stresses. How PT structure behave in earthquake? Is it well performed as compared to non-PT structure? See, PT structure has got basic, you can say, property that the PT steel that we have got is having an ultimate elongation of 4%, 5% or 6%, while our normal Tor steel has got 14.5%. But if you consider the performance based design, then the elongation that steel suffers is not to the extent of 5% or 6% and so on. So that elongation is not so high, though for mild steel it can be as high as 23%. But whatever is the situation, the PT structure is not as ductile as a non-PT structure. That fact remains. Only thing is that much ductility is not required. That is one thing. Secondly, you can provide non-PT steel for that ductility, and then this particular you can say restriction can be mitigated to some extent. We need one manual calculation to check procedure from you. I think that perhaps we can share, right? There are PT, only thing is structure like slab you cannot design manually, but once you know the moments, then the design can be checked manually. That is possible. Bonded or unbonded, which one is to be taken into consideration? Okay. As per 1893, PT slab is not to be considered in lateral load resisting system. What are the boundary conditions for modeling in STAD? I think it doesn't make any difference because you are considering elastic analysis. So for that purpose, your PT has same boundary conditions as RC slab. Sometimes we get the feeling as field engineers that the reinforcement is in spite of PT. Why is that? I think that question is not very clear. In unbonded system, schedule duration is very less as compared to bonded system, but still in India the bonded system is there for so many years, and unbonded has come off late. So people are still many people are not aware also whether such a system is there or not. Few people are only advocating it. Whether regular HYSD bars are to be provided or strands are no. For additional moment you need to provide non-PT steel, that is the normal HYSD bars. How do we design beam column joint? For joint, whatever moments are there, see this PT design, generally they don't consider frame action. They have no moment developed at the ends. It is generally taken as simply supported, the flooring system. If at all some frame action is to be taken care of, then you have to specifically advise the PT designer that it's the frame action that you need to take, and you have to see whether his software can take care of the frame action, 3D analysis and so on, because some of these softwares cannot handle 3D analysis. Yeah, we can repair PT structure. Is there any maximum economic design span criteria for bonded PT and for bonded and unbonded? There is no criteria. They can be easily replaced with each other. It is whether RC or PT that you have got criteria as to after when you consider slabs and beyond 7.5 to 8 meter, then you start realizing that the PT becomes more and more economical and so on. Can you explain how the PT system can be used for electric poles? For electric poles or railway sleepers, they are pre-tension systems. They are mainly worried about the cracking that would occur under vibrations and so on. To prevent that, the whole system is compressed concentrically. There is no eccentric pre-stressing for these PT poles or these sleepers, concrete sleepers which are used. So they are only concentrically placed, and that is a pre-tension system. So in the yard itself they will do full pre-stressing, and then they simply lay it over there. What is the thumb rule to decide width and depth when we are going for concept design? I think the best rule, that thumb rule you can consider, is if your MU by BD square whatever breadth and depth that you have in mind. If mu by bd square is beyond 8 or 9, then you should go for PT if you have some restriction on the depth of the beam. Is it okay for unbonded PT tendons to come in top cover zone? Actually, you should provide the maximum eccentricity to the PT strand because they are the costliest item. The only thing is you should also protect them from corrosion. As far as unbonded is concerned, there is no issue with its corrosion because it is fully covered with the lubricants. So you can lay it in the lowest level, of course not the first layer at the bottom. You have to provide the secondary reinforcement over there, and on that you can provide the strands. Regarding cutting and stressing strands, okay. It is possible to cut. Firefighting unbonded system is okay or not? I think it is all having enough cover, so there should be no problem with this normal firing. Normal you can say fire rating that you consider 2 hours. That is good enough for this because there is a reasonable cover to unbonded system, and that will protect it from fire hazard. How does strength degradation takes place in PT member? I think it is like any other concrete. That concrete has got a life of, as we say, 50 or 70 years. Same thing for PT. I think some are just when we should go for bonded and unbonded. Okay, additional steel. I think that bonded or unbonded, that decision is not left to the RC designer. Generally, it is some other, contractors only put for their case, and the client only sees which is the most economical and accordingly go for it. Okay. Which type of parameter should we consider for core cutting of PT slab? Strengthening concept. How to handle a situation if sleeve is jammed with concrete slurry? I think with bonded concrete, with bonded PT, that is the problem. Sometimes you don't, the mortar doesn't go through, and some cavities are left, which is a cause of corrosion in bonded system. Typically, the practice has been to design the RCC column in ETABS and PT flat slab in ADAPT safe. How do we take into effect result of PT vendor in 3D models? Moreover, we take slab for dead load and live load and avoid diaphragm in 3D vision. I think as far as the 3D approach is concerned, we don't have to consider the pre-stressing into its account because it is a self-balancing force. So it just doesn't affect the performance of the diaphragm and so on. What about lateral load from tendons onto beams where tendons are anchored? There is no lateral load on the beam because it is a self-balancing force. It is either stress from both ends or it is stress from one end with anchorage at the other. So there is no net, please rest assured, there is no net horizontal force applied either on beams or columns. They are totally free of any lateral load. It is only wind load or earthquake that you have to consider. How to actuate PT beam behavior in ETABS? No need to actuate or specially model PT beam. Why only unfactored loading is considered for PT design instead of factor? No, you can go for limit state design in PT, no problem. These softwares can, they give you option, either go for limit state or go for working state. How much cracking is allowed in PT slabs or beam? I think depending upon the exposure, the cracking is limited either to 1 millimeter or 2 millimeter, depending upon the exposure condition. What extra precautions should we take in RC design software for elements? No extra precaution. How can we do the repairing of PT slabs? Okay, no problem with that. It is like any other slabs. PT designer had used some part of concrete block. I think we are almost coming to the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Contact bond scan. Okay, actual location of tools. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we are almost coming to the
Thank
end.
you very much, sir. I'll request. Thank you very much for a very informative lecture. Maximum participation was 395.
Oh,
Maximum participation was 395.
I'll request Jain people to just
I'll request Jain